Hi everybody, it's me, Krista. Welcome back to my channel if you've been here before. If not, welcome for the very first time to my little art corner here on YouTube. Today is going to be part one of at least a two-part series special. It's going to be a two-part video at least on a colored pencil drawing of a cat. And this drawing is not just of any cat. This is a drawing of a cat that I had since childhood. She lived to be 18 years old, and she did pass away a couple years ago. She's very important to me, obviously. Childhood cat. We grew up together. And I felt that I was in an emotionally healthy enough place to try to draw her. This is, as I said, a colored pencil drawing. It is 9 by 12, and it is on Bristol board paper. And it is Bristol board from the Strathmore 300 series. As always, this video is not sponsored, and I am not affiliated with any of the companies mentioned in this video. For the outline of this drawing, I am using a purple General's pastel pencil. I like using pastel pencil for the outline of colored pencil drawings because it usually does not show through the colored pencil like graphite can, and it is more easily erasable than using colored pencil as the base outline. And when I start doing the shading, I am starting with a lot of the markings of the cat and some of the darker areas, and I'm using dark brown by Prismacolor. It's not Prismacolor Premier, this pencil is old, so it's before they had that collection going on. And I'm going to be using a mixture of Prismacolor colored pencils, Faber-Castell Polychromos, and a couple of Caran Luminance pencils. I will leave in the description a list of all the supplies I'm using to make it easier, because I'm not going to be able to just look at what I'm using, especially when it's sped up this much, and be able to tell you step by step exactly what colors I am using. For this colored pencil drawing, I will not be using odorless mineral spirits or paint thinner to help blend the colored pencil. I am just going to be using normal layering techniques and some burnishing. As always, with any media, especially with colored pencil, you want to start out with the lightest possible touch you have and progressively increase the amount of pressure that you are using as you go. With colored pencil, especially, I like doing a lot of layers, and I usually use way too many colors. For me, this drawing is going to be more understated. I am trying not to go full Technicolor Dreamcoat range of colors here. I am intentionally scaling back, attempting to use a slightly more limited palette than normal. And this weird white box that is showing up here, this is to cover up my cell phone because I'm silly, and I had my cell phone next to the drawing while recording. This is actually a normal thing for me when I draw or paint. I usually have my cell phone nearby, but because this is a slightly larger drawing than I usually film, my phone is actually in the shot. And I was having a full-on lengthy text conversation with someone, and that should remain private. So that little white box is going to be there for as long as that was recorded and shown. I apologize for the inconvenience, but you can still see most of what I'm doing with the drawing, and that's what is most important here. The good thing about using the Bristol board, especially with colored pencil, it's also great for graphite pencil drawings too, is it's a super smooth surface. It's not great for painting, but it is very good for colored pencil work because it gives you a smooth surface to work on. Therefore, any texture you see is texture that you are intentionally putting there. A lot of my colored pencil drawings, I tend to be looser and sketchier with a lot of my blending. If you do not like that kind of look, you should do some very small, round, circular motions. Since this is a cat and it has fur, I am intentionally trying to use that scratchy texture to kind of simulate the texture of kitty fur. So I'm doing a lot of short lines. I'm doing a lot of cross hatching and all that fun stuff to show the different directions that fur moves. And at this point in the drawing, I am mostly using a couple of different browns. There's a dark brown, there's kind of a reddish brown. There is a sort of olive green and a light gray. I am trying to leave as much white as possible. Colored pencil is a lot like watercolor, where typically if you're trying to do it in the more traditional fashion, you want to try to leave your brightest highlights and your whitest whites as the white of the paper, if you're using white paper, obviously. In this case, I obviously am. Usually a white colored pencil is better for blending. I will say with the Caran Luminance pencils, that white is more opaque, so it does cover a little bit better and it does pull it up whiter. You can also always use like white India ink, white acrylic paint, or white gel pen, and I'm sure there are plenty of other things you can do to pull back a little bit of that white. If you want to feel really, really brave, I'm sure you can also use an X-Acto knife and scratch out a little bit of the color to bring back a little bit of that white of the paper. I used to do that with watercolor paintings all the time when it was dry. It's a good way to get a nice thin sliced line. And as I'm going, I'm progressively pulling in more colors. Like I said, I will leave a list of all the colors in the description. I'm also going to be pulling in colors in other spots that you would normally not think of using them in. Like in the gray of the fur, I do end up pulling in a navy blue later, and in the eyes, because mixing that with a black especially gives you a nice, deep, but not dead looking color. And by a not dead looking color, I mean it makes it less dull looking. Sometimes using flat black, especially with something like colored pencil, makes it lose a lot of the effect of what you're actually going for. It's usually better to use a dark blue and mix it with a black colored pencil, or even usually like a magenta, because that warms up that black really well. A trick that I used in high school when I was not allowed to use black in colored pencil or pastel, or typically paint, was to mix dark brown with a navy blue, or indigo blue, I guess is typically the color that it's named in most colored pencil lines. It creates a nice deep color that is still full of life, and the reason that that works is that the dark brown is technically kind of more on the orange spectrum, and it's an opposite color to the blue. They're complementary colors. And I feel like I talk about this in a lot of my videos, like shortly, about what colors work together to cancel each other out and to have softer effects. If you guys want me to do a full-on color theory video with actual explanations and then like little demonstrations, let me know in the comments below. I think it might be a good thing to have up here, but I won't know unless you tell me, so let me know. And I know I mentioned that this one was going to be a two-parter. The reason for that is, at least for me, colored pencil has always been a slower medium than using something like acrylic paint. I think it's because of the amount of layering I use and the amount of colors that I pull in and put on top of each other. It's also most likely because it is a smaller object and I'm covering a larger surface with it. Whenever I'm using a pencil and covering a larger piece of paper, it's just going to take longer than using a larger paintbrush. I know they have colored pencil sticks and stuff like that where you can cover a larger space more easily. And if that's something you'd be interested in doing, you should totally invest in that. I don't have it, so I'm not going to, because I have enough colored pencils as it is. I need to use what I got. Also, I want to point out, specifically with colored pencils, part of being able to exert a different amount of pressure on the pencil is actually hand placement. If you've been paying attention to like where my hand is positioned on each pencil, you'll notice that when I'm doing smaller lines with more pressure, my fingers are closer to the tip of the pencil. And by the tip of the pencil, I mean that point that I'm actually drawing with. When I'm trying to cover a larger space, or if I'm trying to apply less pressure, my hand moves to the opposite end of the pencil. So my fingers will be more towards the end that I am actually not using. It'll be at the opposite end of that point. So if this was a normal graphite pencil, for less pressure, my fingers would be closer to the eraser than to the tip that I'm drawing with. It's the same with brushes when you're painting. It's just a good trick to help control the amount of pressure that you're applying. Because if you go in too hard and too heavy, especially with wax-based colored pencils, there's a saturation point for the paper, and you're not going to be able to layer more. You're not going to be able to get as many effects or as many colors in there. I did realize something when I was working on this drawing, and it makes me feel old. My hand starts to hurt more when I use colored pencils than I ever used to. I used to be able to sit for up to 8 hours doing a colored pencil drawing with absolutely no pain in my hand or arm. None whatsoever. And this, after about 4 hours, my index finger was starting to swell a little bit. So be careful. Make sure you stretch out your hand. If you have any hand issues in general, like you get swelling, you might want to wear a compression glove. I think next time when I work on this more, I will probably wear my compression glove to help with that. And like I said, this is only going to be part 1 of at least a 2-part video. So hopefully with the next one, it will be the final video, and this drawing will be completely finished. If you liked this video, please hit that like button. If you have any comments, questions, feelings, or concerns, please leave them in that comment section down below. If you want to see more videos like this, please hit that subscribe button. I post every Friday, and occasionally I post more than 1 video a week, but I do consistently post a video on every single Friday. Thank you so much for spending this time with me. I hope that it has been a fun time for you, because it's been a fun time for me. Thank you again so much, and I will see you next time. Bye!